What up, everybody? Anna Sabramowitz here, and I help instructional designers and multimedia developers craft interactive stories. Welcome! So today's video is going to be about something that comes up quite a bit, and that is when people attend my training or they join me as clients. One of the things they really struggle with is, hey, I've got a ton of content and I've got a ton of software training, let's say. How do I turn that into an interactive story? How do I get scenarios in there, right? And that's a fantastic question, and I thought, hey, why don't I make a video about it? So one of the things that happens quite a bit is that when I begin digging more into like, how have you tried to use this? What's going on? They're like, well, what I initially did is I outlined all the content that I had, and then I basically created like a story or a scenario, or I tried to do it for every single one of those pieces because that would make it more engaging and interactive, right? But then after like 4 or 5 of those, you just realize that you're just creating like more extra content for actually no reason, or you're just overcomplicating things. Like, how can I turn everything I have into an interactive scenario or interactive story? Is that even possible, right? And what happens is you end up trying to use this approach, and it in the end, it really just ends up frustrating you and making you feel like you're trying to get blood from a stone, because this process of trying to turn dry content into scenarios, into stories, is extremely difficult, because this way doesn't work. Like I said, after like the 4th one, you feel like you've got no creative juice and you should just give up. And it happens. And then the worst thing is that if that's been your approach, then then the other thing that happens is that you kind of get demotivated and you stop pitching these projects when they're they're obviously going to make a difference, because one of the things that you're trying to do is create some sort of behavior change, and in also motivate people to take more training, because you've got all this awesomeness out there, or they really do need it, but how do you get them to that next level, right? So excuse me, I think a lot of people are trying to use this approach, but the thing is that they're trying to fit it into a system or a process without realizing that it actually stands on the outside of your content. It stands outside of your simulations. It stands outside of your traditional training. So let me walk you through this, and I'm going to give you a tip so that you can think about it not only differently, but also apply this in a way that will help take the anxiety and the sucking all the energy and creativity out of you out of this process. Okay, so and the way that I figured this out is, where's my eraser? Here it is, my handy eraser. The way I figured this out was that when I started doing this and I wanted to start incorporating stories, what I did is, yes, that's fun. Oh yeah, by the way, before I forget, I have a training webinar coming up, so sign up for it. If you can't make it, sign up for it anyways. You might get a notification about an upcoming one. It's elearningsecrets.com. If somebody would put that in the comments for me, I would appreciate that very much. All right, elearningsecrets.com. So basically more stuff like this. So what I started doing when I started designing these scenarios and simulations is I would try to, because I realized the power of story, right? Stories are meant to move people from a certain place to a certain place, right? Not so great right now, maybe, to somewhere in the future, awesome. And one of the things that happened is I would try and do like a scenario situation, right? And then it would have all these like options and consequences. And then what would happen is you do all this stuff, right? And I'd show people how to do like a certain thing here, like a certain skill, right? Because this was more of a simulation. And one of the things that happened very quickly is that I would lose the story in all these branches, and it would end up being this was a terrible process for me, because what it would dilute the story. it would dilute the story. So every time, you got to kind of keep a continuity here in what this person's doing and then trying to get them back. It was very complicated because let's just say that taking a story, writing a good story is, it's a process. And the worst thing you want to do is to add now a complex simulation process on top of it and be like, yeah, these two can work. It's very rare that they actually can. And in most cases, I'd say stay the heck away from that. There's a better way. And I discovered this because I was like, this can't be the way we got to, like, can we do this differently? Can we think about it differently? Can I try and not combine these things? And that's the magic. You have to keep stories and simulations, especially first-person simulations, especially if you're trying to get people to change behavior and change their mindset and increase their motivation. You got to keep those two things separate. So let me just give you a little bit of context around that. Yeah, this was painful. It was so painful. All right, I want to save you all of that. I want to cut you to the, VIP front of the line. I banged my head against the wall for years. You get to not do that. By the way, if you want to learn more about my process and all of that, storytelling and interactive stories, go to elearningsecrets.com and register for that training. You will love it. So one of the things that we're trying to do with the people, like why are we using story in the first place, right? What's story all about? Story. Can you guys still read that? Oh, that is just way too high. All right. Yeah. Story. Why the heck are we using story? Why are we using story? As far as I'm concerned, the reason we're using story is to increase motivation, increase confidence I'm not saying confidence in the skill set in any way. It's confidence that they can learn, that they can do it, that they also can. That's really important, right, for our learners. They have to be confident that if they try, there will be some kind of a result that's on the positive, right? So another thing we're trying to do is maybe, so we're trying to increase motivation, increase confidence, increase somebody's, I think it's perception of gaps. And you're trying to increase that too. Oh, sorry, I'm kind of lost in I just went on a little journey in my mind about thinking about what are the things that really bring people on this journey. Like, what are we trying to do with the story? And I think that's where we get lost, right? We start to think about skills and things like that it's too early. It's too early. So that's why you have to separate story from your technical training. So let me tell you why you're doing this. So people get, and it's funny, when people start your training, a lot of times give me a hashtag clueless, right? If they actually don't know that this training is useful to them, or that they even are doing something could be done better. A lot of times we create, the things that are going on around us. We're like, hey, look, life's great. Doo-doo-doo. I don't need to take this training. I'm doing good. Or the other thing that they do is they'll say, I don't need to learn anything more. This is who I am. I am what I am, right? They do the Popeye thing. And I can't be Jim, the top salesperson, because I'm not that person. Jim was born with that. I'm born this way. And therefore I cannot learn that skill of building rapport with clients. He's just so good at it. He was born with it, right? So they come in with all this stuff. So if you think that if you can relate to this, give me a hashtag clueless, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually, if you walked around constantly going, I don't know stuff. I know there's stuff that I don't know. You'd have a terrible day every day, right? And we all function the same way. We're trying to make sense of the world as it is. And our brains make up things that help us live a calm and fairly peaceful life, right? So that also means that when you present somebody with some awesome technical training, they're like, you're battling all of this stuff I just mentioned. They're not ready, they're doing fine, they don't see how they can also learn this because it's not for them. All that baggage is coming in. So the purpose for your story is to address all that baggage up front. Because really, if you think about it, we're moving people. Our story is supposed to move people someplace, right? Share with them this vision, this picture of like, your life will be so much better when you go through our awesome LMS training on how to create rapport with a client. You can do this. This is not an innate skill. Yes, some people are better at it than others out of the box, but guess what? This is learnable, right? Everything's learnable, including talking. So one of the things you want to really quickly realize is that people come into your training over here. They're cold. They have no clue, right? And stories are meant to get them to hot, as in they're excited to learn. They see the value. They're like, I can do it. I have potential. I saw that guy in a story and he wasn't, super smart. He did his best and then he did all these things and then he overcame those challenges and I helped him, and maybe I can do that too, right? So that's what you're trying to do with your stories. Therefore, if you present somebody who's in this state and you try and mix story and you try to mix real instruction, right? And even like tutorials. What you may do with this stuff, it's actually kind of crazy, is that they might realize, especially if you're doing this now, if they're cold, they're not sure, or they believe that they can't do it, and then you give them some tutorials and stuff like that, you might actually demotivate them from trying, because they'll be like, see, it's too hard. I knew it. I knew, this is too much, or, oh my God, why am I doing this? I know this already. Don't show me this, right? So what happens is, this instruction and tutorials, you need to deliver it to them when they're already in this state, aka ready. So what you're doing is, you're like, how can I do this, Anna? I want to do this in the right way. Just give me the darn quick, awesome fix tip. Here it is. All right, so we're gonna take, if you have a story goes here, and then learning, whether this is learning on the job, learning, we're talking about, the 5 moments of need. If you want to learn more about the 5 moments of need, just Google it. 5 moments of need. So basically what you're doing is you are not mixing the two. You will have better success, because one of the things that happens is you are here, you're engaging with them with emotion, right? Because that's what happens. They need to emotionally connect to it. And then once you bridge that gap, this is where the logic is, right? This is where the practical awesomeness happens. So that's what I want you to think about. Is so when you're like, how can Anna, stories won't work for me because we have all this content to go through. I've tried incorporating scenarios into all of it. It's too much. You can still do scenarios here, but remember, you need to get people engaged with and have to basically undo all those silly things that they were coming in with. All those, they're not silly, they're actually real, right? They're real for all of us. You need to undo that stuff, get them emotionally charged to be in that hot state where they're like, I'm ready, I know I can do this. All right, show me what you got. You better have some awesome training resources there too, right? So both of these support each other, but they don't mesh. When you try and mesh them, like I said, you come to a big mess because you're trying to do something where you're maybe teaching a little too much. Well, they're still not ready and they're still trying to figure out how is this valuable to them, right? So you want to separate these two, sell them with a story, persuade them with a story, get them pumped up with a story, and then have some awesome resources when they're ready for it to just engage, right? And that to me is like, That's the perfect formula as far as when to use stories. So I hope you found that useful. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed talking about this and creating this for you. I hope you found it helpful. So if you did, let me know, post some comments, like it, then I'll make more of these kinds of videos. Also, like I said, if you want to get good at this, if you're serious about this kind of stuff, behavior change, behavior modification, persuasion, motivation, if you feel that there's this, you can do this, guess what? Go to elearningsecrets.com, register, and you'll learn more about this in more depth, and my drawings are way more sexy. All right, so I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day, and take care, my friends. Thanks for stopping by and watching. Take care.